Dawn broke over a small Massachusetts town, its weak winter light filtering through the frost-covered windows of an aging Ford Econoline. Inside, Emma Walker carefully folded the worn blanket covering her sleeping son, Noah. The boy's breathing had a slight wheeze, the first warning sign of an asthma attack that 8 years of vigilant motherhood had taught Emma to recognize instantly. Her stomach tightened. They were down to the last inhaler, and the bitter January cold only aggravated his condition. She checked her watch, 6:15 a.m., early enough to use the gas station bathroom before the morning shift worker arrived, the one who always gave her suspicious looks. Emma glanced at their meager possessions neatly organized in plastic bins. 3 months living in this van, and still she maintained the standards she once upheld in the million-dollar homes she cleaned in Beacon Hill. Noah stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Those eyes, intelligent and perceptive, always made Emma's chest tighten with a mixture of fierce pride and deeper fear. Fear that the world would never give him the chance to become what she knew he could be. Same dream again, Mom. The one with the house. It had big windows and bookshelves all the way to the ceiling. Noah's voice was soft but clear, no trace of self-pity despite their circumstances. One day, baby, I promise. Their morning routine unfolded with practiced efficiency, a quick wash in the gas station bathroom, teeth brushed with bottled water, and breakfast from their dwindling supplies. Emma's mind calculated constantly, $112 left to their name. Enough for a week of butts and food if they were careful. Maybe two if they stretched it thin. Not enough for first and last month's rent anywhere. Not even in this working-class town where they'd landed after Boston became too expensive. Library today? Noah asked, carefully packing his prized possessions. 3 dog-eared paperbacks, a notebook filled with house designs, and a small plastic chess set missing 2 pawns. After I check out that pawn shop, I think the Victorian brooch might be worth something. The brooch had been a lucky find, spotted in a donation bin behind a church when Emma had been searching for warm clothes. It looked valuable, tiny seed pearls and silver filigree. One benefit of years working as a house cleaner for wealthy families. She'd developed an eye for quality. Martha Harrigan, owner of Harrigan's Muffler Shop where Emma parked her van at night, nodded as they emerged into the frigid morning air. Morning, you two. Sleep okay? Martha's weathered face showed genuine concern beneath her shop cap. At 68, she still ran her late husband's auto repair business with calloused hands and a no-nonsense attitude that somehow never became unkindness. Yes, ma'am. Just fine, Noah answered, his breath forming small clouds in the freezing air. Got something for you. Martha reached into her pocket and handed Emma a slightly crumpled flyer. Storage auction today. Thought of you since you've got an eye for that sort of thing. Valley View storage units abandoned or unpaid for 90-plus days. Emma's eyes caught the details. 10 name or start, cash only, win and clear within 48 hours. She'd watched enough of those storage hunter shows during better times to understand the concept. Thank you. She folded the flyer carefully and tucked it into her jacket pocket. The germ of an idea, desperate, perhaps foolish, began to form. In the van, Noah rifled through his mother's journal, a beaten leather-bound book filled with Emma's neat handwriting, detailing valuable items she'd encountered during her housekeeping days. You wrote about a Ming vase worth $30,000. How did you know what it was? Noah's finger traced the careful sketch Emma had made. The family I worked for hired an appraiser. I listened. That's how you learn things. People don't think you need to know. Her mind raced, calculating odds and possibilities. The storage auction represented both risk and opportunity, a gamble with their last $112. Martha knocked on the window as Emma started the engine. Think carefully before you go spending money at that auction. I've seen people lose everything chasing treasure. Noah needs to eat more than you need to gamble. Emma nodded, but Martha's warning didn't extinguish the spark of hope. I know it's risky, but sometimes life only gives you bad options and worse ones. This town is killing us slowly. Noah deserves a real roof, real chances. Today is the day things change, son. I can feel it. Snow began to fall as they drove across town, delicate flakes that would likely become a heavier storm by afternoon, according to the weather reports. The heating in the old van struggled against the Massachusetts winter, and Noah kept his thin blanket wrapped around his shoulders. The Valley View storage facility was on the outskirts of town, a sprawling complex of metal buildings surrounded by chain-link fencing, topped with razor wire. A cluster of people had already gathered by the entrance, mostly men in their 40s and 50s, some carrying flashlights, others with notepads or smartphones, all with the keen-eyed look of people hunting for profit. Emma parked the van and hesitated, suddenly unsure. She didn't belong here. These were professionals, people who did this for a living. The weight of their entire savings, a pathetic sum that nonetheless represented survival, felt heavy in her pocket. Mom. Noah's voice broke through her doubt. His expression showed complete faith in her, unwavering despite months of declining fortunes. We came this far. Might as well see what's inside. Emma nodded, squared her shoulders, and took Noah's hand. Stay close to me, okay? They joined the group just as a heavy-set man in a company polo shirt began explaining the rules. Frank Wilson, the auctioneer, had a rapid-fire delivery that suggested years of practice. Each unit would be opened. Bidders would have 2 minutes to look without entering or touching anything. Then bidding would start. Cash only. Units had to be cleared within 48 hours. The first storage unit revealed stacked furniture, a sectional sofa, dining table, several dressers. The bidding quickly escalated beyond Emma's means, ending at $850. The second unit held boxes labeled kitchen and bedroom, along with exercise equipment in several garment bags. It went for $775. By the fourth unit, Emma was losing hope. These people knew what they were doing, bidding confidently on units that held obvious resale value. A man next to her, stocky with a salt and pepper beard and a laminated badge identifying him as Derek Coleman, professional buyer, smirked as he assessed her and Noah. First time. Might want to take the kid home. This isn't a game for amateurs or charity cases. Derek's eyes flicked dismissively over Emma's worn coat and Noah's 2 small winter boots. Noah's hand tightened in hers, a silent message passing between them. She wouldn't give this man the satisfaction of seeing them retreat. Then came Unit 217. When the door rolled up, several bidders actually laughed. The small 5x10 unit appeared to hold little more than trash. Boxes with water damage, a few pieces of mismatched furniture, some rolled up carpets. Looks like someone's spring cleaning gone bad, muttered Derek, already turning away. But Emma noticed something. The water damage on the boxes was only on certain ones, those stacked against the left wall. The rolled carpet showed no signs of mold, and a wooden trunk at the back was positioned on blocks, kept deliberately off the potentially damp floor. This wasn't a unit abandoned due to worthlessness. This was a unit where someone had made selective decisions about what to protect. The starting bid for Unit 217 is $25, Frank announced. A few of the bidders wandered away, heading toward the next unit. Emma stepped forward, peering into the dim space, mind racing. Waste of time, Derek commented to another bidder. Not worth the gas money to haul it to the dump. $30, called a voice from the back. 45, Emma said, her voice stronger than she felt. Noah looked up at her with wide eyes, understanding the magnitude of their gamble. Derek glanced at her with surprise. The lady wants the trash. All yours. Going once for 45, the auctioneer called. Going twice. 47, Emma amended quickly, suddenly worried even this apparent junk might slip away. I bid $47. 47 going once, twice. Sold to the lady for $47. As Emma completed the paperwork and handed over their money, every dollar they had, a thin woman with nervous eyes approached. She wore the same company polo as Frank, with Elaine embroidered above the pocket. Be careful, the woman said quietly, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. I'm Elaine Barfkane. I work in the office here. Sometimes units like that, ones that look worthless, they're not abandoned by accident. Sometimes people try to hide things by making them look not worth finding. Before Emma could ask what she meant, Elaine hurried away, leaving Emma with a padlock key and a receipt for Unit 217. Noah stood before the open unit, his expression a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. It does look kind of messy, Mom. Let's see what we've got before we judge, baby. She stepped into the unit, moving carefully toward the wooden trunk that had caught her attention. Despite the cold, sweat beaded on her forehead as the reality of their situation hit her. They had just spent every penny they had on what might truly be worthless junk. Over the next 2 hours, they methodically sorted through the contents. Much of it was indeed trash, intentionally damaged items, papers soaked beyond recognition. But there were treasures too. A set of silver flatware wrapped in tarnished cloth, several vintage jewelry boxes containing costume pieces, and hardcover books that had been protected from the water damage. Mom, look! Noah held up an old Polaroid camera. Does it still work? Maybe. We'll check it later. Emma was focused on the trunk, which was locked with a small brass padlock. A voice from the entrance made them both jump. Find anything good? Derek stood there, arms crossed, eyeing their progress. Bet you're regretting that $47 now, huh? Emma straightened, protective instinct flaring. We're doing fine. Thank you. Her tone made it clear his presence wasn't welcome. His eyes narrowed as they fell on the silver flatware Emma had set aside. Maybe not a complete bust after all. He stepped away, calling over his shoulder. 48 hours to clear it out. The clock's ticking. When he was gone, Noah whispered, I don't like him, Mom. Me neither, baby. Emma returned to the trunk, examining the lock. It was old but sturdy. They loaded their most promising finds into the van. The silver, the books, the intact boxes, and drove to a hardware store where Emma purchased a small pry bar with $5 precious Martha had pressed into her hand that morning. For lunch. That night, parked in their usual spot behind Martha's shop, Emma worked on the trunk while Noah sorted through their other finds. The snow had intensified, coating the van's windows with a layer of white that offered both privacy and added insulation against the deepening cold. Mom, these books are really old, Noah said, carefully turning the pages of a leather-bound volume. This one's from 1932. First editions? I don't think so, but they're still nice. With a final effort, the trunk's lock gave way. Emma sat back, wiping sweat from her forehead, then slowly raised the lid. Inside lay a carefully organized collection. Jewelry boxes, sealed envelopes tied with faded ribbon, a folded American flag in a triangle display case, and newspaper clippings preserved in plastic sleeves. Emma lifted out one of the clippings. The headline read, Blackwood Estate Valuation Exceeds Expectations. The article, dated 1985, discussed the art collection of Frederick Blackwood, described as one of the city's premier art dealers and collectors. Who's Frederick Blackwood? Noah asked, moving closer to see. I don't know, Emma murmured, setting the clipping aside and picking up one of the jewelry boxes. Inside was a gold locket on a delicate chain. Emma opened it to find a tiny photograph of a young woman with a gentle smile and intelligent eyes. On the back of the locket was an engraving, To Maggie, all my love. Noah had opened another box, revealing a velvet pouch. Mom, look. The pouch contained a key, not a door key, but a small, ornate key with a numbered tag. Box 891. A safe deposit box, Emma whispered. Their eyes met, both understanding the significance of their find. As they continued their exploration, a narrative began to emerge. Maggie Porter had been Frederick Blackwood's personal assistant, and possibly more, based on the intimate tone of several sealed letters they found. She had disappeared in 1984 and, according to another newspaper clipping, had been declared legally dead 7 years later. But the most intriguing item was a journal entry torn from a diary and preserved separately. If anything happens to me, the proof is secured. Box 891 contains everything needed to expose the truth. Frederick trusted me with his legacy, not Edward. He has always resented this and will do anything to claim what he believes is his. I've arranged a fail-safe. This unit is paid for 10 years in advance under a pseudonym. If I can't retrieve these items myself, I pray someone worthy finds them. It was signed simply MP and dated August 17, 1984. Malik, I think we've stumbled onto something serious. Like a mystery in your detective books, maybe, but real. Mysteries can be dangerous. She carefully replaced the items in the trunk. Noah's eyes were wide, but not with fear, with excitement. We need to do research, right? Like real detectives? Tomorrow, we need to do some research. That night, as Noah slept, Emma stared at the ceiling of their van, the locket clutched in her hand. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of hope, not just because of the potential value of what they'd found, but because of the story emerging from that forgotten storage unit. Someone had taken great care to preserve these items, to leave breadcrumbs for a future finder. Why? Morning brought heavy snowfall and temperatures that had dropped into the teens. Noah's breathing was worse, the cold aggravating his asthma. Emma gave him a dose from the inhaler, anxiety gnawing at her as she watched how little medication remained. The silver flatware alone might bring enough to buy more medicine, but she hesitated to sell anything until she understood more about what they'd found. The central library stood like a temple of knowledge against the winter sky. For Emma and Noah, it served as both sanctuary and resource center, a place with free internet access, clean bathrooms, and librarians who didn't eye them suspiciously when they stayed for hours. Remember, we're looking for information on Frederick Blackwood, Maggie Porter, and anything about an art collection or estate dispute in the mid-1980s, Emma instructed as they settled at adjacent computer terminals. Noah nodded seriously, typing with the proficiency of a much older child. His intelligence had always been evident. Even as a toddler, he'd shown a gift for patterns in memory that had both delighted and worried Emma. Delighted because she recognized his potential, worried because she feared their circumstances would suffocate it. An hour of searching yielded promising results. Frederick Blackwood had indeed been a prominent art dealer in Boston from 1962 until his death in 1983. His collection, particularly his Impressionist paintings, had been valued in the millions. After his death, the estate had passed to his nephew and business partner, Edward Blackwood, in what the Boston Globe had described as an unexpected development that surprised many in the art world. "Mom, look at this." Noah had found an archived Society page photo showing Frederick Blackwood at a gallery opening. Beside him stood a woman whose face matched the locket photograph, Maggie Porter, identified in the caption as personal assistant. "She's pretty," Noah observed. "And young," Emma added. "She'd have been in her late 20s here, and he looks about 60. Further searching revealed that Maggie Porter had vanished without a trace in September 19, almost exactly a year after Frederick Blackwood's death. The disappearance had generated some press at the time, with Edward Blackwood quoted as saying she had been distraught after my uncle's death, and that he feared she may have taken her own life. But one article, buried deep in their search results, hinted at something more complex. Written by investigative journalist Rebecca Walsh for the now-defunct Boston Examiner, it raised questions about Porter's disappearance and its timing, just days before a scheduled audit of the Blackwood Gallery's financial records. The article quoted an anonymous source suggesting that Maggie had discovered discrepancies in the gallery's accounts after Frederick's death. It concluded with a tantalizing line: "Miss Porter's disappearance may have silenced her, but questions about the Blackwood estate remain." "Can we find this Rebecca Walsh person?" Noah asked, his detective instincts in full gear. Emma performed a new search. "Looks like she's still around. She writes a blog about Boston history and politics." She scribbled down the contact information. "This might be our best lead." As they gathered their research, Emma noticed Noah's breathing. The slight wheeze had returned, more pronounced than that morning. "Your inhaler?" she asked, unable to keep the worry from her voice. Noah reached into his pocket, producing the blue rescue inhaler that was their constant companion. He took 2 puffs, his small chest expanding as he held his breath for the required count. "I'm okay," he said after a moment, but the shadows under his eyes told a different story. "Let's get some lunch," she said, forcing brightness into her tone. They couldn't afford to eat out, but she'd packed sandwiches and apples. A picnic in the library's enclosed courtyard would give Noah fresh air without exposing him to the worst of the cold. As they ate, Emma's mind worked through their options. The silver flatware could be sold. The books might be worth something to a collector. And then there was the safe deposit key. Box 891. Where was that box? Which bank? And even if they found it, would Emma have any legal right to access it? "We should contact Miss Walsh," Noah said, interrupting her thoughts. "It's not that simple, baby. We can't just call up a journalist and tell her we found someone's private belongings in a storage unit." "Why not? Isn't that what journalists do? Investigate things?" "You might be right. Let me think about how to approach her." That afternoon, they returned to the storage unit to continue sorting and packing. Emma was acutely aware of Derek's warning: 48 hours to clear everything out. They'd need to make several trips in the van, which meant spending precious gas money. As they worked, Noah made an exciting discovery, a hidden compartment in the bottom of a damaged dresser drawer. Inside was an envelope containing vintage photographs of Maggie Porter, including one with her standing in front of a magnificent painting, her arm linked with Frederick Blackwood's. "Look how happy they look," Noah observed. On the back of the photo was written, "Frederick and I with the Monet, 1982, the happiest of birthdays." Another photo showed Maggie alone, standing on the deck of what appeared to be a beach house, the ocean stretching behind her. Marigold Cottage, summer 1983, was noted on the reverse. "Mom, do you think Mr. Blackwood and Miss Porter were in love?" Noah asked with a child's directness. Emma considered the evidence, the locket inscription, the intimate photos, the protective way Blackwood stood beside Maggie in several images. "It seems possible. He was much older, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have cared for each other deeply." By evening, they had cleared about half the unit, salvaging what seemed valuable or significant and reluctantly leaving the rest. The silver flatware, books, trunk contents, and photographs were carefully packed in the van. Snow continued to fall, accumulating several inches on the ground, making each trip to and from the storage unit increasingly difficult. That night, parked behind Martha's shop, Emma composed an email to Rebecca Walsh. She kept it simple and direct. "Miss Walsh, I recently came across some items belonging to Maggie Porter, the woman who disappeared in 1984 after working for Frederick Blackwood. Your article from that time raised questions about her disappearance in the Blackwood estate. I believe I may have found evidence supporting your suspicions. Would you be willing to meet?" She signed it with just her first name and a temporary email address she'd created at the library, then sent it from her phone. One of the few luxuries she maintained, necessary for the occasional house cleaning jobs she still picked up when available. The reply came faster than she expected. Just 20 minutes later, "Intrigued. Coffee tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. at Riverside Cafe on Vermont Street. I'll be wearing a red scarf. Rebecca." Emma showed the message to Noah, who was playing with his magnetic chess set, setting up complex problems for himself to solve. "Are we going?" he asked. "I am. You'll stay with Martha." The auto shop owner had occasionally watched Noah when Emma had a cleaning job. Another kindness Emma added to her mental ledger of debts she hoped to repay someday. "But I want to come. I found some of the important clues." His lower lip jutted out in a rare display of childish protest. "I know you did, and you're my best detective. But we don't know this woman or how she'll react. If something feels wrong, I need to be able to leave quickly without worrying about you. Will you at least tell me everything when you get back?" "Every detail," she promised. That night, Emma carefully examined the most valuable items they'd found: the silver flatware, vintage jewelry, and first edition books. One piece in particular caught her attention: a silver serving spoon with an ornate monogram. The craftsmanship suggested significant value to the right buyer. The next morning, after dropping Noah with Martha, she made a detour before her meeting with Rebecca. The sign above the small storefront read, "Reliable Pawn, Michael Abramov, Proprietor." Inside, the shop was meticulously organized, with glass cases displaying jewelry, watches, and collectibles. Unlike the cluttered, chaotic pawn shops Emma had seen before, this one felt almost like a boutique. A bell jingled as she entered, and a man looked up from behind the counter. Michael Abramov appeared to be in his early 60s, with salt and pepper hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. He was examining a pocket watch with a jeweler's loop. "Good morning," he said, his accent hinting at Eastern European origins. His eyes, sharp and assessing, took in Emma's worn coat and cautious demeanor without judgment. "Morning," Emma replied. She approached the counter and carefully unwrapped the Victorian brooch from its tissue paper. Michael picked up his loop again and examined the piece. "Victorian, 1880s, she said. "I think the pearls are real, though small." Michael's eyebrows rose slightly. "You know jewelry?" "I know a little about a lot of things," she answered with a small shrug. Years of invisibility as a housekeeper had taught her to observe, to listen when wealthy people discuss their possessions. You become the thing your employer expects. And in the homes of the rich, that thing was quiet competence and invisible presence. "You are correct. Late Victorian. Good condition. The setting is silver, not platinum or white gold, which limits the value, but it's authentic." He set down the loop. I can give you $60. Emma had expected 40 or 50 at most. She tried not to show her surprise or relief. Deal, she said simply. As Michael counted out the bills, he asked, any other interesting items to sell? Not today, Emma replied, accepting the money. She noticed Noah's magnetic chess set on display in a case near the register. The price tag read $35. Michael followed her gaze. You play? My son does. He's 10. Very good at it, actually. Taught himself from library books. Smart kid. Michael nodded with genuine interest. 85 for the brooch. She started to protest, but he held up a hand. The workmanship is better than I initially assessed. I don't cheat people, especially not observant people who know the value of things. As Emma accepted the additional money, Michael reached under the counter and pulled out a battered wooden chess set. You play? He asked Noah. The boy's eyes lit up. Yes, sir. At the library sometimes. Take it, Michael said, pushing the set toward her. Board folds up. Pieces are magnetic. Previous owner didn't want it back after I gave him a loan. As Emma hesitated, he added, I have 5 grandchildren. Education is everything. Games that make you think, very important. He gestured toward the chess set again. Please, it gathers dust here. That's very kind, Emma said, unaccustomed to generosity without strings. Thank you. Outside, clutching her new possession and the $85, enough for more asthma medication and a week of food, Emma felt a strange mixture of hope and unease. The world had dealt her so many blows that kindness had become suspect. But there was something about Michael Abramov's straightforward manner that felt trustworthy. She arrived at the Riverside Cafe 15 minutes early, scanning the nearly empty establishment. Only one woman sat alone at a corner table, a notebook open before her, a vivid red scarf around her neck despite the cafe's warmth. Gathering her courage, Emma approached. Miss Walsh, I'm Emma. The older woman looked up. Please sit. I've ordered coffee for 2. I hope that's all right. Rebecca Walsh appeared to be in her early 60s, with steel gray hair cut in a practical bob and keen eyes that missed nothing. She had the alert posture of someone who had spent decades observing others. Emma sat, grateful that the woman had chosen a relatively inexpensive cafe. Even so, she hadn't budgeted for eating out. Thank you for meeting me, she began. Your email mentioned Maggie Porter. That's a name I haven't heard in quite some time. Rebecca's voice was rich and measured. You said you found something? Yes, but first, how much do you remember about her case? Enough to know it wasn't what Edward Blackwood claimed it was, Rebecca answered without hesitation. Maggie Porter wasn't suicidal. She was methodical, intelligent, and utterly devoted to Frederick. After he died, she was determined to protect his legacy. Rebecca paused as the waiter delivered their coffee. Now, what exactly have you found, Emma? Emma took a deep breath and explained about the storage unit auction, the trunk and its contents. She showed Rebecca several photos on her phone, images she'd taken of the journal entry, newspaper clippings, and photographs. When she mentioned the safe deposit box key, the journalist let out a low whistle. Box 891, Rebecca murmured. Did you try to access it? Emma shook her head. I don't know which bank it belongs to. And even if I did, I wouldn't have the authority. Smart. Very smart. Rebecca tapped a manicured nail against her coffee cup. The tag might indicate First National. They were Frederick's bank of choice. She studied Emma. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? Emma considered her answer carefully. The truth, she finally said. These belongings, they tell a story that someone tried to bury. Maggie Porter disappeared, but her things were carefully preserved. She matters, even if someone wanted to erase her. And if there's monetary value to all this, a reward, or even historical significance that could be profitable, I'm not going to lie to you. I need money. My son and I live in our van. He has asthma. So yes, if there's a reward or if some of these items are valuable, I would gratefully accept compensation. But that's not why I contacted you. I contacted you because your article was the only one that questioned the official story. Rebecca's expression softened slightly. Let me be direct. I've been chasing the Blackwood story for decades. Edward Blackwood is now in his 70s, still running what's left of the gallery, still respected in the art world. But I've always believed he stole from his uncle, both financially and in terms of his rightful legacy, which should have gone to Maggie Porter. I believe Frederick had changed his will shortly before his death, leaving Maggie a significant portion of his estate, particularly his personal art collection. But when he died, Edward produced a will leaving everything to him. Maggie contested it, quietly at first, through legal channels. Then she vanished. You think Edward was involved in her disappearance? Emma asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. I think Maggie discovered proof of Edward's embezzlement from the gallery. I think she was preparing to expose him when she disappeared. And I think she was smart enough to leave insurance behind, which may be exactly what you found. Rebecca closed her notebook. I want to help you pursue this, but you need to understand something. The Blackwoods are powerful, with connections throughout the city. If Edward discovers what you found, he won't hesitate to come after it. And you. A chill ran down Emma's spine. Why would he care after all these years? Statute of limitations aside, this isn't just about legal consequences, Rebecca explained. It's about legacy and reputation. Edward's entire life has been built on his status as Frederick's heir and the prestige of the Blackwood collection. If evidence emerges that he stole that position, that he potentially had something to do with Maggie's disappearance, it would destroy him. She leaned forward. Are you prepared for what that might mean for you and your son? Emma hesitated. The weight of what she'd discovered suddenly felt much heavier. She'd been focused on the potential value of the items, on the mystery of Maggie Porter. But now Rebecca was suggesting something darker, that these decades-old secrets could still be dangerous. I need to think, she said finally. Of course. Rebecca reached into her purse and produced a business card. My personal cell is on the back. Call me when you decide. In the meantime, be careful with what you found. Don't show it to anyone else. As Emma drove back to Martha's shop, her mind raced. Rebecca's warnings echoed in her thoughts, mingling with more immediate concerns. Gas money, Noah's medications, and where they would sleep if Martha ever asked them to move on. She was so preoccupied that she almost missed it. A small white sedan that had followed her from the cafe, maintaining a consistent distance behind her van. When she turned onto a side street, the sedan did too. When she made an unnecessary loop around a block, the car stayed with her. Heart pounding, Emma made a series of random turns, finally pulling into a crowded shopping center parking lot and driving around to the back where she parked between two delivery trucks. She waited, watching through the side mirror, and saw the white sedan cruise slowly past the entrance to the lot. It could be nothing, she told herself, but didn't believe it. Not after her conversation with Rebecca. When she picked up Noah from Martha's shop, she didn't mention the car or her fears. Instead, she listened to his excited recounting of how he'd helped change the oil on a Honda Civic and learned about different types of wrenches. That evening, they drove to a different parking spot, a 24-hour grocery store lot where other vehicles sometimes remained overnight. Emma didn't want to risk leading anyone back to their usual spot behind Martha's shop. As Noah prepared for bed, he asked, "Did you meet the journalist lady? What did she say?" Emma measured her words carefully. She knew Maggie Porter and believed she was a good person who might have been hurt because she knew too much about the art collection. Possibly. Miss Walsh thinks Maggie may have discovered that Edward Blackwood was stealing from the gallery, so it is like a mystery novel with a villain and everything. Noah's eyes shone with excitement. Life is rarely as simple as books, baby. Emma smoothed his hair back from his forehead. But yes, there does seem to be a mystery here, one that might be better left alone. But what about Maggie? If someone hurt her, shouldn't they face consequences? Out of the mouths of babes, Emma thought. Her son's moral clarity cut through her own cautious calculations. You're right, she said softly. Justice matters, even decades later. After Noah fell asleep, Emma examined their findings again, focusing on the safe deposit box key. If Rebecca was right about it belonging to First National Bank, it might be their most significant lead. But as a homeless woman with no account at the bank, she had no standing to inquire about the box. She needed Rebecca's help, and perhaps more importantly, she needed an ally in what was beginning to feel like a dangerous pursuit. Emma took out her phone and sent a text to Rebecca. I'm in, but we need to be careful. I think I was followed today. The response came quickly. Not surprised. Meet tomorrow, 3 p.m. My apartment, safer than public. Address to follow. Emma stared at the message, a mixture of determination and fear settling in her stomach. She glanced at Noah. peaceful in sleep, and thought about the life she wanted for him. Stable, safe, full of opportunities. The key to that future might lie in a decades-old mystery left by a woman who had vanished without a trace. In the morning, Emma decided to make one more stop before meeting Rebecca. She drove to Michael's pawn shop, hoping to sell a few pieces of the silver flatware to generate some immediate cash. The bell jingled as she entered. Michael looked up from his workbench where he was repairing an antique clock. "Ah, the chess player's mother," he greeted her. "How is the young champion?" "He loves the set. Thank you again." She unwrapped 3 pieces of silver flatware. "I was hoping you might be interested in these one." Michael examined the pieces carefully. Sterling silver, Georgian period. Very nice quality. The monogram is BF. Could be Blackwood, Frederick. The connection surprised Emma, and she must have shown it on her face. Michael's eyes sharpened. "You know the provenance?" Emma hesitated, then decided on partial honesty. "I bought a storage unit. These were inside. I'm still figuring out what everything is." Michael nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I can offer 150 for these 3 pieces. If you have the complete set, it would be worth considerably more." As he counted out the money, Emma noticed a man across the street, watching the shop. The same white sedan from yesterday was parked nearby. Michael caught her nervous glance. "Problem?" "I think someone's following me," she admitted, surprising herself with her candor. Michael's demeanor changed instantly. His relaxed shopkeeper persona fell away, revealing someone more alert and assessing. "Military intelligence. 20 years," he said simply. "Old habits die hard. I notice things. That car has passed by 3 times in the last hour." Before Emma could respond, the shop's phone rang. Michael answered it, listened briefly, then held it out to her. "It's for you." Confused, Emma took the phone. "Hello? Emma, it's Rebecca. I was trying your cell, but it's going straight to voicemail." "I need you to listen carefully. Someone accessed box 891 at First National yesterday. My contact at the bank just called. Edward Blackwood knows about the storage unit, about you. You need to be careful." Emma's blood ran cold. How would he know so quickly? Someone at the auction must have tipped him off. "Listen, I think you should come directly to my place. I'm sending a friend to escort you, Jack Reynolds, ex-military, completely trustworthy. He'll be at the pawn shop in 10 minutes. "How did you know I was here?" Emma asked, bewildered. "You mentioned Michael's shop yesterday. It wasn't hard to figure out which one. This town only has 2 pawn shops, and Reliable is the only one run by someone named Michael." After ending the call, Emma turned to find Michael watching her with concern. He'd clearly heard enough to understand the situation. "You're in trouble," he stated rather than asked. "It seems that way," she admitted. "The boy, is he safe?" "He's with a friend, Martha Harrigan." Michael nodded, then moved to the window, scanning the street with practiced eyes. The car is still there. Someone's watching. He guided Emma away from the window. "My friend Jack is coming?" "Yes. Rebecca said he's ex-military." Michael smiled slightly. "Jack Reynolds and I served together. If she's sending him, the situation is serious. But you are in good hands." Over the next 10 minutes, Michael shared some of his background. Military intelligence officer who became a certified appraiser after retirement, specializing in antiques and estate valuations. His expertise might prove useful if Emma's storage unit treasures needed authentication. When Jack arrived, Emma was surprised to see a trim, athletic man in his late 50s with alert eyes and a calm demeanor. Nothing about him screamed military, but there was an undeniable competence in his movements. Michael greeted him with a brief hug. "Old friend, long time." "Too long, Michael." Jack turned to Emma. "Ms. Walker, I'm Jack Reynolds. Rebecca sent me. We should move quickly." "What about my van?" Emma asked, suddenly realizing the complication. "Leave it here for now," Michael suggested. "I'll keep it safe." Jack nodded. "We'll use my car. Stay low when we leave. There's someone watching the shop." As they prepared to leave, Emma felt a moment of clarity amidst the swirling uncertainty. In the span of 2 days, her life had transformed from the quiet desperation of homelessness to the center of a decades-old mystery that powerful people wanted to keep buried. She had no idea where this path would lead, but for Noah's sake, and perhaps for Maggie Porter's, she would follow it through. Sometimes the things that look like trash to most people contain real treasure. You just need the right eyes to see it. Michael's parting words followed Emma as she ducked into Jack's car, the white sedan still visible down the street, a silent reminder that the past was very much alive and dangerous. Jack's car sliced through the thickening snowfall, wipers struggling against the accumulation. From the passenger seat, Emma watched the rearview mirror, searching for any sign of the white sedan. The city looked different from this perspective. Not the usual routes she navigated in her van, but unfamiliar streets chosen deliberately by Jack to detect and evade followers. No one behind us now. Jack's voice carried the quiet confidence of someone who had done this before. His weathered hands remained steady on the wheel as he navigated a series of turns. Military intelligence teaches you to spot surveillance. Edward Blackwood's people aren't professionals, just hired help. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Martha. Noah's fine, playing chess with a customer who stopped by. Don't worry about us. The simple message delivered both relief and a stab of maternal guilt. Her son was safe, but she'd dragged him into a situation that now required protection from strangers. Rebecca's apartment was in a pre-war building in a quiet neighborhood, far from the upscale areas where Emma had once cleaned homes. Nothing flashy to announce its importance, but solid brick construction with security cameras monitoring the entrance. Jack parked 2 blocks away, leading Emma through an alley and a service entrance. Old habits from my time overseas, he explained as they climbed the back stairs. Always have multiple exit routes. Rebecca greeted them at her door wearing the same red scarf from the cafe, now a splash of color against her charcoal turtleneck. The journalist's apartment revealed more about her than their brief meeting had. Walls lined with overstuffed bookshelves, framed newspaper articles, and photographs of Rebecca with various dignitaries and public figures. A lifetime of pursuing stories displayed like trophies. Photographs covering one wall caught Emma's attention, dozens of them arranged in a complex timeline. Frederick Blackwood, Maggie Porter, Edward, gallery openings, and news clippings. At the center, a red question mark covered the spot where Maggie had last been seen. You've been investigating this for a long time. Emma's fingers hovered over a faded photograph of a younger Rebecca standing outside the Blackwood Gallery. 40 years. Rebecca moved to her desk, lifting a stack of files. Some cases get under your skin. Maggie Porter was 28 when she vanished. Smart, dedicated, with her whole life ahead of her. The police dismissed it. Everyone accepted Edward's story that she was depressed after Frederick's death. But I knew better. I'd interviewed her just 2 weeks before she disappeared. Jack positioned himself by the window, creating a small gap in the blinds to monitor the street below. He moved with the economy of someone trained to assess threats, his presence adding gravity to the situation. Tell me what vehicle you saw following you earlier. White sedan, 4-door, Massachusetts plates starting with 7G. Emma recalled the details with surprising clarity, her senses sharpened by fear. Jack nodded, typing the information into his phone. I'll run these through some channels. If it's registered to a security firm or a shell company connected to Westridge Legal, we'll know we're dealing with Edward's people for certain. Rebecca spread several documents across her dining table. While we wait for Noah, let's go through what you found systematically. She produced a digital camera. We'll document everything properly, insurance, in case the originals are compromised. For the next hour, they cataloged every item from Unit 217, photographs, letters, newspaper clippings, the locket, and most importantly, the safe deposit box key. Rebecca photographed everything, created an inventory, and transferred the images to an encrypted drive. When Emma described the silver flatware she'd sold to Michael, Rebecca didn't seem concerned. The silver is valuable, but it's not what Edward fears. It's the proof of his deception, evidence that Frederick intended his collection to go to Maggie, not him. Rebecca examined the key with its 891 tag. This is our most promising lead. My contact at First National, now Western Union Banking, confirmed Box 891 still exists at their downtown branch. It was registered to Maggie Porter and had been paid up for 50 years in advance. An unusual arrangement, Emma leaned forward. So we can access it? That's where things get complicated. Rebecca's expression tightened. The box was accessed 3 days ago by someone claiming legal authority over the Blackwood estate. My contact couldn't tell me what was removed, but the timing can't be coincidental. Someone alerted Edward immediately after you claimed Unit 217. Jack returned from his surveillance position. Could have been anyone at the auction. That guy Derek seemed particularly interested in what you found. Or the facility employee, Elaine, who warned me. Emma recalled the woman's nervous demeanor. She knew something about that storage unit. Rebecca nodded. If Edward has been monitoring any activity related to Maggie or that storage unit for decades, your name would have triggered an alert. That's why we need to be methodical now. Whatever was in that safe deposit box, Edward has it. But he's still concerned about what you found, which means there must be something in Unit 217 that could still damage him. Jack's phone buzzed. He checked the message, his expression darkening. The sedan is registered to Phoenix Security Services, a firm frequently contracted by Westridge Legal. Rebecca wasn't surprised. Edward's attorney, Thomas Grant, uses them for all his sensitive matters. They're expensive but discreet, former police mostly. The buzzer from the building's entrance interrupted them. Jack moved instantly to the security panel by the door, checking the video feed. His tension visibly eased. It's Martha Harrigan with the boy. Martha's weathered face appeared first as the door opened, her expression a mixture of concern and determination. Noah burst past her, rushing to Emma with his backpack clutched to his chest, his breath slightly wheezy from the climb up the stairs. The auto shop owner stood awkwardly in the doorway, snow melting on her heavy work coat. A man came asking for you again, more insistent this time. Left a business card. Thomas Grant, attorney. I didn't like his tone. Then Rebecca called about bringing Noah here. Seemed safer than keeping him at the shop. Emma embraced Martha, the simple human contact nearly bringing tears to her eyes. How did you find this address? Rebecca called me directly, said Jack would have mentioned my name. Martha glanced around the apartment, taking in the wall of investigation photos. This is serious trouble you've stepped in, isn't it? Rebecca invited Martha to stay, but the older woman shook her head. Got a transmission waiting at the shop. But you call if you need anything, day or night. She squeezed Noah's shoulder. Keep that big brain working, kiddo. You're going to figure this all out. After Martha left, Noah explored the apartment with undisguised curiosity, stopping at the investigation wall. His eyes widened at the timeline of events Rebecca had constructed. Excitement overcame caution as he pointed to a photo. Mom, look! That painting behind Maggie and Frederick. It's the same one from the photo we found. The Monet. Rebecca joined them, examining the photograph Noah had identified. Good catch. That's Water Lilies at Dusk, one of Monet's later works. Part of Frederick's personal collection, valued at around $30 million today. $30 million. Emma couldn't comprehend such wealth. Art has only appreciated since Frederick's day. His personal collection, separate from the gallery inventory, included works by Monet, Renoir, Degas, Cassatt. Conservative estimates put its value at over $100 million in today's market. Rebecca tapped the photograph. According to my sources, Edward has been quietly selling pieces from the collection for years, claiming financial necessity for the gallery. Noah had moved to Rebecca's desk, where her laptop displayed a web page for the Blackwood Gallery. The website shows they're planning a major exhibition next month. The Legacy Collection, Frederick Blackwood's Vision. Jack looked over Noah's shoulder at the screen. Perfect timing. Edward is about to showcase the remaining masterpieces as his crowning achievement, reinforcing his status as Frederick's chosen heir. While Noah continued browsing under Jack's supervision, Rebecca led Emma to the kitchen, speaking in lowered tones. There's something you should know. My contact at the bank mentioned that Box 891 was accessed using a power of attorney document for the Blackwood estate. Only Thomas Grant has that authority. Edward sent his lawyer to clear out the box as soon as he learned you had the key. Emma processed this information. But why is he still concerned about what else I might have found? Rebecca leaned against the counter. Because Maggie was smart, she wouldn't put all her insurance in one place. The storage unit, the safe deposit box. She created redundancies. Whatever evidence she gathered against Edward, she made sure it couldn't be completely destroyed. The winter afternoon darkened quickly outside Rebecca's windows. Jack suggested they retrieve some of Emma's belongings from her van, still parked at Michael's shop. Emma was reluctant to leave Noah, but the boy had settled comfortably at Rebecca's dining table, arranging the chess set Michael had given him. I'll be fine, Mom. Miss Rebecca's going to show me how to organize evidence like a real investigator. His confidence made Emma smile despite her anxiety. In just days, he'd gone from a child trying to survive in a van to one actively engaged in solving a mystery that had remained buried for decades. Jack drove cautiously, using side streets and doubling back several times to ensure they weren't followed. The streets glistened with fresh snow, beautiful and treacherous in the fading light. Emma found herself studying Jack's profile, curiosity overcoming her usual reserve. "How do you know Rebecca?" "My wife worked at the Boston Globe when Rebecca was there. After Sarah died, Rebecca helped me through some dark times. When I left the military, she occasionally hired me to provide security for sensitive investigations." His expression softened. "Rebecca fights for people who can't fight for themselves. She never forgot Maggie." Michael's shop was closed when they arrived, but lights glowed in the apartment above. He buzzed them in through a side entrance. Emma was struck by the contrast between the meticulously organized shop below and Michael's living space. Walls lined with bookshelves like Rebecca's, but also displaying military memorabilia and framed antique maps. The old shopkeeper had prepared coffee and sandwiches. News travels fast when Jack Reynolds is involved. His smile revealed genuine concern beneath his gruff exterior. "Your van is secure in my garage bay. No one has approached it." Jack updated Michael on the situation while Emma gathered essential items from her van, clothes for her and Noah, his asthma medication, and important documents she kept in a waterproof case. The familiar interior of the vehicle, their home for the past 3 months, suddenly seemed both vulnerable and precious. As Emma climbed the stairs back to Michael's apartment, she overheard the two men talking. "It's the Blackwood case, after all these years." Michael's voice carried a note of recognition. "Sarah would be pleased to see you working on it again." Jack's response was too quiet to hear, but the emotion in his voice was unmistakable. When Emma entered, their conversation shifted seamlessly to security matters. Michael offered his shop as a secondary safe location if needed, and Jack accepted gratefully. The drive back to Rebecca's apartment took longer as the snowfall intensified. Traffic slowed to a crawl on the main roads, forcing Jack to navigate a labyrinth of side streets. Emma watched the buildings pass, wondering how many other secrets lay hidden behind their walls, how many other stories remained untold. Something caught her attention. A black SUV, two cars behind them, moving in the same careful pattern as their own vehicle. Jack noticed her tension. "What do you see?" "Black SUV. It's been behind us since we left Michael's." Emma's heart rate accelerated. "It's following the same turns." Jack's demeanor changed instantly, his relaxed posture replaced by alert readiness. He made a sudden left turn down a narrow street, then another quick right. The SUV appeared behind them, no longer attempting to maintain distance. "Hold on." Jack accelerated through an amber light, then made a sharp turn into an alley. The SUV followed, its engine roaring as it closed the gap. Jack's hands remained steady on the wheel as he executed a series of maneuvers through increasingly narrow streets, the car sliding occasionally on the snow-covered asphalt. Emma gripped the door handle, knuckles white. The SUV was still behind them, closer now. "Who are they?" "Not Phoenix Security." Jack's voice remained calm despite the chase. "Those guys are surveillors, not pursuers. This is someone else." He reached beneath his seat, removing what appeared to be a small transponder. Pressing a button, "Chom." He tossed it out his partially open window. It attached magnetically to a parked car as they passed. The SUV followed them around another corner, then suddenly veered off, presumably tracking the transponder's signal. "Old trick. Buys us some time." Jack didn't slow down, continuing to navigate a complex road back toward Rebecca's neighborhood. They won't fall for it long. Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Rebecca. "Noah fine. Take precautions returning. New development." The message triggered fresh anxiety. What new development? Was Noah truly safe? Jack took a circuitous route, eventually approaching Rebecca's building from the opposite direction and parking several blocks away. They walked the remaining distance, Jack constantly scanning their surroundings, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Someone's escalating the pressure. Phoenix Security is one thing. They observe and report. Whoever was in that SUV wanted to intercept us. Rebecca's apartment was warm and bright against the winter darkness outside. Noah sat at the dining table with papers spread before him, his expression animated as he explained something to Rebecca. The journalist looked up as they entered, relief evident in her eyes. "You're back. Good, we've made progress." She gestured to the documents Noah had been organizing. "Noah discovered something in the photographs we missed." The boy held up a photograph, Maggie standing on the deck of a beach house. "Marigold Cottage, summer 1983. The one we found in the storage unit. Look what's written in the bottom corner." He pointed to tiny handwriting barely visible in the margin. Emma leaned closer. The words Fred's Sanctuary, followed by what appeared to be GPS coordinates, were written in Maggie's neat script. Noah had already looked them up. "It's on Cape Cod, about 2 hours from here. Frederick's summer house." Rebecca nodded. "It wasn't listed in any of the estate documents I've seen over the years. Edward either doesn't know about it or deliberately kept it off the records." Jack studied the coordinates. "Isolated location. Private beach access. Good place to hide things you don't want found. Or to disappear to if you're in trouble." Rebecca's implication hung in the air. Could Maggie have gone there rather than meeting the fate everyone assumed? While they discussed the possibility, Emma's phone rang. An unknown number, she answered cautiously. "Ms. Walker, Thomas Grant, attorney for Edward Blackwood in the Blackwood Gallery." His voice was smooth, professional, betraying no emotion. "Mr. Blackwood is aware you've come into possession of certain items from a storage unit. These items are Blackwood family property. We're prepared to offer $5,000 for their return, no questions asked." Emma met Rebecca's gaze, putting the phone on speaker. "What makes you think these items belong to the Blackwood family?" The storage unit was registered under a pseudonym connected to a former employee. The contents relate to Blackwood Gallery business matters. Mr. Blackwood is being generous given the circumstances. A pause. "Your current living situation is precarious, Ms. Walker. $5,000 could secure proper housing for you and your son." The threat beneath the offer was unmistakable. Emma's voice remained steady despite the hammering of her heart. "I'll need time to consider your offer. Don't take too long. Mr. Blackwood's generosity has limits." The line went dead. Rebecca's eyes flashed with anger. Typical Thomas Grant. Honey-coated threats. He knows exactly what buttons to push. Jack frowned. "They found your phone number quickly. We should assume they have your full background by now. Employment history, financial situation, everything." Noah had been listening intently. His face showed no fear, only determination beyond his years. "We're not giving them anything, right, Mom? Maggie hid this stuff so someone would find it someday. She trusted whoever found it to do the right thing." Noah's words crystallized Emma's resolve. "We need to know what's in that cottage, and we need legal advice. If Edward is willing to pay $5,000 now, these items must be worth far more, either in money or in secrets." Rebecca made a series of calls, speaking in the shorthand of long professional relationships. By nightfall, she had secured an appointment with Samantha Chen, an attorney specializing in estate disputes, for the following morning. She'd also contacted her source at the bank for more information about Box 891. Jack arranged for enhanced security. A colleague would watch Rebecca's building overnight while he got some rest in the guest room. The apartment had only 2 bedrooms, so Emma and Noah would share Rebecca's room while the journalist took the sofa. As Emma helped Noah prepare for bed, the boy's excitement hadn't diminished despite the long, tense day. "Tomorrow will be real detectives with a lawyer and everything." He carefully arranged his chess pieces in their starting positions on the magnetic board, a ritual that seemed to center him. Emma sat beside him on the bed, watching his methodical movements. "Are you scared, Noah?" He considered the question with typical seriousness. "A little, but also excited. Before, we were just surviving each day. Now we're doing something important." He looked up, his eyes reflecting wisdom beyond his years. "Maggie matters, Mom, even if she's been gone a long time. People shouldn't get away with hurting other people just because they're rich or powerful." Emma pulled him close, his small frame fitting against her side as it had when he was a toddler. "When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You were just too busy working to notice." His smile took any sting from the words. They settled into the unfamiliar bed, the sounds of the city muffled by the falling snow outside. Morning brought clearer skies and temperatures cold enough to turn the previous day's slush to treacherous ice. Jack arrived early, bringing fresh pastries and coffee. He'd spent the night researching Marigold Cottage, compiling satellite images and property records. The property hasn't changed hands since 1983, still listed under Frederick Blackwood's name, never transferred to Edward after his death. Jack spread the images across the dining table. It's essentially abandoned, but the utilities remain connected and property taxes are paid automatically from a trust account. Rebecca's phone rang, her banking contact. Her expression grew increasingly serious as she listened. She ended the call with a terse, "Keep me posted," before turning to the others. Thomas Grant accessed Box 891 using his power of attorney. He removed everything. But here's the interesting part. He wasn't alone. Edward Blackwood himself went with him, which is unusual. Edward typically sends minions to do his dirty work. Jack studied the property images again. If the safe deposit box contained something that required Edward's personal attention, we can assume it was significant. Could be that whatever was in that box pointed to Marigold Cottage. Noah had been examining the photographs from Unit 217 again. Something about the locket caught his attention. He carefully opened it, studying the tiny portrait of Maggie Porter. "Mom, there's something behind the picture." Emma took the locket, delicately removing the photograph to reveal a tiny key taped behind it. Not a door key or a safe deposit box key, smaller like the key to a jewelry box or diary. Maggie left breadcrumbs everywhere. Rebecca's voice held renewed excitement. "They might have emptied the safe deposit box, but they don't know about this." Jack checked his watch. "We should leave for the attorney's office." The snow had stopped, but the roads would still be treacherous from ice. Better to allow extra time. Samantha Chen's law office occupied a modest suite in a downtown building. Not the gleaming glass tower of Westridge Legal, where Thomas Grant worked, but a solid brick structure with character and history. The attorney herself presented a striking contrast to Grant's polished corporate image. In her early 50s, with streaks of gray in her black hair, she carried herself with quiet confidence rather than intimidation. "The evidence you've gathered is compelling." Samantha examined the journal entry and photographs spread across her conference table. Frederick Blackwood clearly intended to leave his personal collection to Maggie Porter. The safe deposit box key, even without its contents, suggests she was preparing legal action before her disappearance. "Can we challenge Edward's ownership of the artwork after all these years?" Rebecca asked. "The statute of limitations would normally prevent it, but if we can prove fraud, that Edward deliberately suppressed the later will and potentially had knowledge of what happened to Maggie, then yes, we have grounds." Samantha sorted the documents into categories with practiced efficiency. "What we need is the original will or a legally valid copy with witness signatures." Noah, who had been quietly drawing in a notebook, looked up. "Like a doctor might sign it?" "There's a picture of Frederick with a lady doctor. I saw it on Miss Rebecca's wall." Rebecca's eyes widened. To Victoria Winters, Frederick's personal physician for nearly 20 years. She might have witnessed the will. If she's still alive, she could testify to Frederick's intentions. Samantha nodded, already making notes. "Find her. A living witness with direct knowledge of Frederick's wishes would strengthen our case considerably. But we'll need more than testimony. We need documentary evidence. The will itself, financial records showing Edward's embezzlement, anything that establishes a pattern of deception." Emma felt the weight of expectations settling on her shoulders. All this from a $47 storage unit gamble. Samantha's gaze was piercing, but kind. "Sometimes justice needs a catalyst, Ms. Walker. You found what had been hidden for decades. Now we use it." They left the attorney's office with a clear plan. Rebecca would locate Dr. Victoria Winters, while Jack investigated Marigold Cottage's current status. Emma and Noah would return to the storage unit before their 48-hour window expired, searching for anything they might have missed. As they walked to Jack's car, Emma noticed Noah's breathing had improved in the day since they'd left the van. The warmth and proper shelter of Rebecca's apartment had already benefited his asthma, a painful reminder of how their living situation had affected his health. The return to Valley View storage brought a surprise. Derek Coleman was there, seemingly waiting for them. The professional buyer leaned against his truck in the parking lot, watching their arrival with calculated interest. Jack tensed beside Emma, positioning himself between her and Derek. Didn't expect to see you back. Thought you might have cut your losses. Derek's friendly tone contrasted with his watchful eyes. Find anything valuable in all that junk? Emma matched his casual demeanor. A few things worth keeping. Still sorting through it. Derek nodded toward the administrative office. Elaine's been asking about you. Seemed concerned. Jack kept his voice neutral, but took a half step closer to Derek. Concerned about what exactly? The professional buyer shrugged, but his relaxed posture was belied by the careful assessment in his eyes. Just said she remembered something about that unit. Previous owner or something. His phone buzzed. He checked it, then pushed off from his truck. Well, good luck with your treasure hunt. 48 hours is almost up. They watched him drive away, his truck disappearing down the snow-covered road. Jack memorized the license plate. I'll run his plates too. See if there's any connection to Phoenix Security or Westridge Legal. Inside the storage facility office, Elaine wasn't at the desk. A young man Emma hadn't seen before informed them that Elaine had called in sick. Probably the weather. A lot of people staying home with this ice. The remaining contents of Unit 217 looked even less promising in daylight. Water-damaged furniture, stained carpets, and boxes of seemingly random household items. Noah approached the task methodically, insisting on checking every drawer, every seam, every possible hiding place. His diligence paid off when he discovered that a small writing desk with a damaged leg contained more than met the eye. The drawer seemed too shallow compared to the desk's external dimensions. Noah carefully removed the contents, old stationery and pens, and felt along the edges until he found a nearly invisible seam. When pressed, a hidden panel popped up, revealing a second shallow compartment beneath. Inside was a small leather book, its cover unmarked except for the initials MP embossed in gold. Beside it lay a key identical to the one they'd found in the locket. Emma held the two keys together, comparing their intricate patterns. It needs both keys. Unlike a normal diary with a simple clasp, this had two separate locks built into the cover. That's why Maggie hid them separately. You'd need both to open it. With trembling fingers, Emma inserted both keys into their locks and turned them simultaneously. The binding mechanism clicked, and the book fell open. Inside was not a diary, but a ledger. Meticulous records of artwork sales, dates, prices, and discrepancies between recorded gallery income and actual sales figures. Jack photographed each page methodically, ensuring they captured at every detail. The final pages contained something even more damning. Photographs of documents showing that Edward had sold several pieces from Frederick's personal collection before his death, forging his uncle's signature on the paperwork. The sales had been to private collectors overseas, making them difficult to trace. This isn't just about the will anymore. Rebecca's voice was hushed with the significance of their discovery. This is fraud, forgery, possibly tax evasion across decades. And motive. Jack finished the thought. Motive for ensuring Maggie Porter never revealed what she knew. The temperature had dropped further by the time they finished documenting the ledger's contents. Ice crystals formed intricate patterns on the storage unit's metal door as Jack secured it. They had found what they came for, but the 48-hour window would expire the following morning. Whatever remained would be forfeit. Back at Rebecca's apartment, the journalist made a triumphant announcement. I found Dr. Victoria Winters. She's 86, living at Pine Haven Retirement Community. Her mind is still sharp, according to the staff member I spoke with. She's agreed to meet with us tomorrow morning. The atmosphere in the apartment took on renewed purpose as they prepared for the next day's meeting. Emma helped Noah with his schoolwork, a routine she maintained despite their unstable living situation, while Rebecca organized their evidence for presentation to Dr. Winters. Jack excused himself to meet his colleague who had been monitoring the building. When he returned 20 minutes later, his expression was grave. We have a problem. Someone's been watching the building since this afternoon. Black SUV, same model as yesterday, 2 men inside. Rebecca moved to the window, carefully adjusting the blinds to peek outside. The SUV was parked across the street, barely visible through the falling snow. Edward's escalating. First surveillance, now intimidation. Jack nodded. Phoenix Security is one thing. These guys are different. Likely private contractors with fewer scruples about methods. We should assume they'll make a move soon. As if summoned by his words, Emma's phone chimed with a text message from the same unknown number as before. The offer has increased to $10,000. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., Westridge Legal Offices. Bring all items from storage unit. No police, no journalists. After this, legal action begins. Emma showed the message to the others. They're panicking. Rebecca's excitement was evident. The ledger must be even more significant than we realized. Jack remained focused on security. They'll have this place under surveillance now. We need to be careful about our movements tomorrow. The meeting with Dr. Winters, then potentially Marigold Cottage. Both trips carry risk. Noah had been listening intently, his eyes moving between the adults as they discussed strategy. His voice was small but determined when he spoke. If they're watching us, how do we know they won't try to hurt Dr. Winters too? She's the only one who can say what Frederick really wanted. The question hung in the air, a child's insight cutting through to the heart of the matter. Jack squeezed Noah's shoulder. That's exactly why we need to be careful, buddy. But don't worry, I've got some experience keeping people safe. Rebecca made a series of calls, rearranging their meeting with Dr. Winters to take place at her attorney's office, rather than the retirement community. Samantha agreed to host, providing both legal protection and a secure location. They prepared for bed with a heightened sense of tension, the SUV still visible on the street below. Jack insisted on taking the first watch, positioning himself near the window where he could monitor the vehicle while still remaining hidden from view. Emma couldn't sleep, her mind racing with implications and possibilities. The storage unit that had seemed like a desperate gamble had yielded evidence of decades-old crimes. What had started as a hope for quick cash had transformed into a quest for justice for a woman who had disappeared before Noah was born. She crept from Rebecca's bedroom, careful not to wake Noah, and found Jack still at his post by the window. The SUV hadn't moved. Jack acknowledged her with a slight nod as she sat in the chair opposite him. If they know we're here, why don't they just come up? Emma kept her voice low to avoid disturbing the others. They were waiting to see where we go tomorrow. Jack's military training was evident in his calm assessment. They want all the evidence, not just what we're carrying. That includes Dr. Winters and potentially Marigold Cottage. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly chilled despite the apartment's warmth. This isn't what I expected when I bid on that storage unit. I just wanted to find something valuable enough to get us out of the van for a while. Sometimes we don't choose our battles. They choose us. Jack's gaze remained on the street below, his profile illuminated by the faint glow from a streetlight outside. I was in Kosovo when my wife was diagnosed with cancer. By the time I got back to the States, the disease was advanced. She spent her final months investigating the Blackwood case, convinced Maggie Porter had been silenced. His voice softened. Sarah believed that justice doesn't have an expiration date. Emma absorbed this revelation, understanding now the personal stake driving Jack's involvement. Had Rebecca called him not just for his security expertise, but because the Blackwood case represented unfinished business for both of them? Around 3 in the morning, Emma finally managed to doze off in the armchair. She woke to the sound of movement in the kitchen. Rebecca preparing coffee, the aroma filling the apartment. Dawn brought a brief respite from the snowfall, pale winter sunlight gleaming off the ice-covered streets below. Jack reported that the SUV had left shortly after midnight, replaced by a different vehicle, a dark sedan with a single occupant. The surveillance continued, but the watchers had rotated shifts. They prepared for the day with military precision, Jack outlining the security protocols for their journey to Samantha's office. Noah watched the preparations with wide eyes, absorbing every detail of what had become an operation worthy of his beloved detective novels. Rebecca received a call just as they were preparing to leave, her banking contact again. Her expression shifted from interest to alarm as she listened. Edward Blackwood made a large cash withdrawal yesterday, $200,000. She mouthed the words untraceable to Jack. Jack's response was immediate. We move now. Different route than planned. Emma, Noah, stay between Rebecca and me at all times. He checked his phone, typing rapidly. I'm calling in some additional help from friends. The building's service entrance again provided their exit route, Jack leading them through a series of connected alleyways to where Michael Abramov waited in a nondescript sedan, engine running. The pawn shop owner nodded a greeting as they piled in, his calm demeanor belying the tension of the moment. Saw your text. Like old times, yes? Michael navigated through back streets, taking a circuitous route towards Samantha's downtown office. Been a while since I played getaway driver. Jack kept watch through the rear window, alert for any sign of pursuit. Edward's cash withdrawal suggests he's hiring people who don't ask questions and don't leave paper trails. Standard practice for certain kinds of operations. Emma held Noah close, her son's presence both her greatest vulnerability and her strongest motivation. The boy's eyes were wide but unafraid, taking in the cloak and dagger proceedings with the resilience of youth. His hand clutched the magnetic chess set, a talisman of normalcy in increasingly abnormal circumstances. Samantha's office building came into view, solid, respectable, with none of the ostentatious glamour of West Ridge Legal's glass tower. Michael circled the block twice before pulling into the underground parking garage. No obvious surveillance, but remained vigilant. His eyes met Emma's in the rearview mirror. Your son is brave, like his mother. They entered through the service elevator, bypassing the lobby where cameras might record their arrival. Samantha was waiting in her conference room, along with an elderly woman seated in a comfortable armchair by the window. Despite her advanced age, Dr. Victoria Winters carried herself with dignified composure. Her silver hair swept back in an elegant knot, her gaze sharp and assessing as they entered. Maggie would have appreciated the irony, meeting in secret, pursued by Edward's agents, trying to right a wrong from decades ago. Dr. Winters' voice had the slight quaver of age but retained its authority. Sometimes history refuses to stay buried, no matter how much dirt has been piled atop it. Samantha made the formal introductions. Then Rebecca took the lead, gently walking Dr. Winters through their discoveries. The storage unit, the ledger, the safe deposit box key. The elderly physician listened without interruption, occasionally nodding as pieces of the puzzle aligned with her own knowledge. I was Frederick's doctor for nearly 20 years. Dr. Winters accepted the cup of tea Samantha offered. I watched his gallery grow from a modest space to one of the most respected collections on the West Coast. Her gaze shifted to Noah, who had been silently observing from beside Emma. Young man, you remind me of Frederick. Same curious eyes, always watching, always thinking. Noah straightened under her attention, momentarily awestruck to be included in the adult conversation. He found his voice after a moment. Did you know Maggie Porter too? Dr. Winters smiled, genuine warmth breaking through her reserved demeanor. Indeed, I did. Maggie came into the picture in 1978, applied for a position as Frederick's assistant, just 26, but remarkably knowledgeable about art for someone so young. She'd studied art history but couldn't afford to finish her degree. Were they romantically involved? Emma asked the question that had been in her mind since finding the locket. Dr. Winters shook her head. Not in the way you might think. Frederick was 40 years her senior. He came to love her, certainly, as a father might love a daughter, as a mentor loves a particularly gifted protege. And she adored him. Their connection was profound, but not romantic. Yet he changed his will to leave her his collection. Rebecca's statement was half question, half confirmation of their theory, because she understood it. Dr. Winters' voice strengthened with conviction. Frederick's nephew, Edward, saw the art only as assets, valuable pieces to be bought and sold. Maggie saw them as Frederick did, as expressions of human creativity, as pieces of history that deserve preservation and appreciation. 2 months before he died, Frederick discovered that Edward had been selling pieces from the gallery and pocketing the proceeds. Her eyes flashed with remembered indignation. Embezzlement, plain and simple. Frederick was furious, threatened to press charges, to disinherit Edward completely. But in the end, his health was failing, and a public scandal would have damaged the gallery's reputation. So instead, he changed his will. Rebecca completed the thought. The gallery business would go to Edward, but the personal collection, the heart of what Frederick had built, would go to Maggie. Exactly. And I witnessed this revised will, along with Nathaniel Green, Frederick's accountant. It was properly notarized, completely legal. Dr. Winters' expression hardened. After Frederick died, Maggie told me Edward had produced a different will, dated earlier, leaving everything to him. She was contesting it legally, quietly, to avoid scandal. Then she vanished. Did you suspect foul play? Jack asked, his first contribution to the conversation. I had no proof. The police found no evidence of crime, and Edward's story that Maggie had been distraught, possibly suicidal, was plausible to those who didn't know her well. Dr. Winters met Emma's gaze directly. But Maggie Porter was not suicidal. She was determined to honor Frederick's wishes, and she was afraid. Afraid of Edward? Samantha probed gently. She never said so explicitly, but in the weeks before she disappeared, she became increasingly cautious. She told me she had insurance, evidence about Edward's embezzlement, copies of the real will, letters from Frederick expressing his intentions. Dr. Winters looked at Noah, who was listening with rapt attention. She hid her insurance in places no one would think to look. Like a treasure hunt. The storage unit, Emma murmured. Apparently so, though I never knew where specifically she hid things. Safer that way for both of us, Doctor. Winters reached for a small purse beside her chair and withdrew an envelope. What I did keep was this. A letter Maggie gave me for safekeeping, to be opened only if something happened to her. When she disappeared, I almost came forward with it. But, Rebecca prompted, sensing the unspoken continuation, I received a visit from Thomas Grant, very similar to what you described, Miss Walker. Veiled threats, references to my medical license, my reputation. I was nearing retirement with no family to support me. Dr. Winters' shoulders straightened, dignity reasserting itself. I'm not proud of it, but I stayed silent. Yet I kept the letter. And now, at 86, what more can they do to me? My conscience won't let me stay silent any longer. The envelope she handed to Rebecca contained a handwritten letter from Maggie Porter, dated September 2nd, 1984, just days before her disappearance. Dear Dr. Winters, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Edward's threats have escalated since I filed the legal challenge to the fraudulent will. I fear for my safety but cannot abandon Frederick's wishes. The evidence of Edward's embezzlement is secured in multiple locations. The original will is in Box 891 at First National. Additional documentation is hidden where Edward would never look, in plain sight among what he would consider worthless. If I disappear, please know it was not by choice. Please ensure that Frederick's true legacy is preserved, not pillaged by a man who sees only dollar signs where Frederick saw beauty. With gratitude for your friendship, Maggie. This is significant. Samantha finally broke the silence that followed the reading. With your testimony in this letter, we can establish Maggie's state of mind before her disappearance, directly contradicting Edward's suicide narrative. I'm prepared to testify. Dr. Winter's voice held no hesitation. It's long overdue. The letter mentions Box 891, Emma pointed out, but we know Falk cleared that out 3 days ago, which suggests they found the original will, Samantha said grimly, and likely destroyed it, Dr. Winters added. Edward would never allow such evidence to exist if he could help it, but he can't destroy everything. That's why Maggie created redundancies. The storage unit, perhaps other locations we haven't discovered yet. Noah, who had been silent during the testimony, suddenly spoke. Marigold Cottage. The lady Maggie said she hid things in multiple places. We found some, but maybe there's more at the cottage. Like a treasure hunt with lots of clues. Dr. Winters smiled at the boy. You're a very perceptive young man. I think Maggie would have liked you very much. The small key, Emma remembered suddenly. The one Noah found inside the Polaroid camera and its match behind the locket photo. It must open something else, something we haven't found yet. Or something still in the storage unit, Rebecca suggested. You said you couldn't clear everything out in the time allowed. We should go back, Noah said with the simple certainty of a child who sees the obvious solution. Jack checked his watch, calculating. The 48-hour window for clearing the unit expires at noon today. We have less than 2 hours. Samantha made a series of rapid decisions, the attorney's strategic mind working through contingencies. Dr. Winters will remain here with me to complete her formal deposition. Jack, take Emma and Noah back to the storage unit. If there's anything left to find it quickly. Rebecca, start preparing the court filing. We have enough now to challenge Edward's ownership of the remaining artwork and potentially force a financial investigation. As they prepared to leave, Dr. Winters took Emma's hand. Catherine was fighting for what was right despite the risks. You're doing the same for your son and for her memory. Frederick would have admired your courage. Emma felt the weight of the comparison. I'm just trying to follow where the evidence leads. That's all any of us can do, Dr. Winters replied. the wisdom of her years evident in every line of her face. That's all any of us can do. Jack navigated the ice-slicked roads with practiced precision, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors for signs of pursuit. The second trip to Valley View Storage carried greater urgency, the 48-hour window closing in less than 2 hours. Emma gripped the ledger in her lap, its weight both physical and symbolic. Noah pressed his face against the window, watching snow-laden pines blur past, his breath fogging the glass in rhythmic patterns. Winter shadows stretched long across the storage facility's entrance. The parking lot stood nearly empty, most people sensible enough to avoid unnecessary travel in such treacherous conditions. Jack parked close to the entrance, positioning the car for a quick departure if needed. Unit 217's padlock yielded to Emma's key one final time. The remaining contents looked even more forlorn now. What they'd initially dismissed as trash might contain the final pieces of Maggie Porter's carefully constructed puzzle. Noah approached the task with methodical determination. Starting with the furniture they'd previously overlooked. They've destroyed the will from the safe deposit box. Noah's voice echoed in the metal space as he carefully examined a water-damaged dresser. That means whatever we find here might be the only proof left. Emma marveled at her son's intuitive understanding of their situation. The injustice of Maggie's story had touched something fundamental in him, a sense that the world should be fair, that truth should matter more than power or money. She prayed the real world wouldn't crush that belief too soon. Jack maintained position near the entrance, dividing his attention between surveillance and assisting their search. 20 minutes in, Noah's persistence paid off. The writing desk with the broken leg, the one they'd searched before, contained another secret. Not in the drawer this time, but in the desk's pedestal. A small compartment, expertly concealed in the curved molding, revealed itself only when Noah applied pressure to what appeared to be a decorative element. Inside lay a slim file folder, its edges yellowed with age, but the contents preserved by a sealed plastic covering. Noah extracted it carefully, eyes widening as he realized what they'd found. "Mom, these look like legal documents." Emma spread the papers across the concrete floor. A copy of Frederick Blackwood's revised will, not the original from the safe deposit box, but a legally certified copy with the signatures of both Dr. Winters and Nathaniel Green clearly visible. The notary's stamp confirmed its authenticity. Attached was a letter from Frederick to Maggie detailing his intentions for the collection and his disappointment in Edward. The final document proved most damning, a handwritten confession from a gallery employee admitting to helping Edward falsify financial records. The confession was dated 3 days before Maggie's disappearance, suggesting she had been building a legal case against Edward when she vanished. Jack photographed each document, sending the images directly to Samantha. "Time's running out. We have what we need." His voice carried the urgency of their situation. As they secured the documents and prepared to leave, Emma cast a final glance at Unit 217. The seemingly worthless items remaining would be reclaimed by the facility within hours, destined for disposal. Whatever value they might have held, monetary or evidential, would be lost forever. A pang of regret mixed with gratitude. A $47 gamble had changed everything. The facility office was empty when they passed through, no sign of the mysterious Elaine or the indifferent manager from before. Jack maintained vigilant awareness as they loaded into the car, the precious documents secured in Emma's bag alongside the ledger. The drive back to Samantha's office proceeded without incident, though Jack took a circuitous route, doubling back several times to ensure they weren't followed. Emma used the time to read Frederick's letter to Maggie more carefully, absorbing the genuine affection evident in his formal, old-fashioned handwriting. "My dearest Maggie," he had written, "in you I have found the appreciation for beauty and history that I always hoped to instill in Edward. Where he sees only dollar signs, you see the soul of the artist captured in pigment and canvas. My collection must remain intact, preserved for future generations rather than parceled out to the highest bidders. I entrust this legacy to you, knowing you will honor both the art and my wishes." By the time they returned, Dr. Winters had completed her formal deposition. Samantha's conference room had transformed into a war room, documents arranged in meticulous order, Rebecca coordinating with a forensic accountant via video conference, and a new face, James Reynolds, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s, introduced as the director of the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. The discovery of the certified will copy changed everything. Samantha reviewed the document with growing excitement, highlighting key passages and witness signatures. This is exactly what we needed. The certified copy carries nearly the same legal weight as the original. With Dr. Winter's testimony and these supporting documents, we have a strong case. James Reynolds examined the copy of Frederick's letter to Maggie, his expert eye noting details others might miss. The paintings Frederick references here, particularly the Monet and the Cassatt, are scheduled for Edward's exhibition next month. If we can secure an injunction preventing their display or sale, it would force Edward to negotiate. Rebecca looked up from her laptop with a triumphant smile. My banking contact came through with more information. After Frederick's death, Edward systematically sold off 23 pieces from the personal collection, works that should have gone to Maggie under the revised will. Total value in today's market, approximately $63 million. The magnitude of the theft silenced the room. Even Jack, typically unflappable, showed surprise. Edward Blackwood hadn't just stolen Maggie's inheritance. He'd dismantled one of the country's significant private art collections piece by precious piece. Samantha broke the silence, her legal mind already formulating strategy. I'll file for an emergency injunction today. Judge Martinez is presiding in civil court. She has a reputation for taking estate disputes seriously. The hearing could be scheduled as early as tomorrow morning. Noah, who had been quietly examining the museum director's portfolio of Blackwood collection images, looked up with sudden intensity, the winter afternoon light catching his serious expression. What happens if we win? Where will all the paintings go? James Reynolds smiled at the boy, recognizing a kindred spirit in his genuine concern for the artwork's fate. That's an excellent question, young man. Ideally, we would honor Frederick Blackwood's intentions, keeping the collection intact and accessible to the public. The museum director's presence suddenly made sense to Emma. Rebecca had brought him in not just as an expert witness, but as a potential solution to the disposition of the collection. If the court ruled in their favor, the museum could become the ultimate recipient of Frederick's legacy. The conversation shifted to tactical matters, legal filings, documentation, and potential scenarios for the hearing. Through it all, Emma observed Noah's growing engagement, his natural intelligence finding purpose in this unexpected adventure. He participated in the discussions with surprising insight, asking questions that sometimes gave even the experts pause. Dr. Winters insisted on one more critical action before the court filing, notifying the police about Maggie's letter and the new evidence suggesting foul play in her disappearance. The statute of limitations on financial crimes might have expired, but there was no time limit on justice for a missing person. By late afternoon, Samantha had filed their case. In the matter of the estate of Frederick Blackwood, regarding the disputed ownership of the Blackwood collection, an emergency hearing was scheduled for 9:00 a.m. the following day, with Judge Eleanor Martinez presiding. As darkness fell, bringing fresh snowfall, a new complication arose. Rebecca received a text from one of her sources at the Blackwood Gallery. Edward Blackwood has called an emergency staff meeting, appears to be arranging transport for several major pieces ahead of schedule, could be planning to move the most valuable works before the injunction takes effect. Jack immediately shifted into tactical mode. The exhibition preparations provide perfect cover for removing and potentially hiding key pieces. If he gets them out of state or overseas before the hearing, recovering them becomes exponentially more difficult. The cottage. Noah's quiet declaration drew all eyes to him. His small finger traced the GPS coordinates on the photograph margin. If Maggie hid the certified will copy in the storage unit, she might have hidden other evidence at Marigold Cottage, maybe even information about where she went. He looked up, meeting the adult's surprised expressions. We should go there tonight, before Edward figures it out too. Out of the mouths of babes. Dr. Winter's voice carried both amusement and respect. Frederick would have appreciated your insight, young man. Jack considered the logistics, weighing risk against potential reward. The Cape would be treacherous in this weather, nearly 3 hours in good conditions, potentially twice that in snow. But Noah was right. If Edward was accelerating his plans, Marigold Cottage might contain crucial evidence that would soon be lost. The debate ended when Samantha's assistant burst in with news. Judge Martinez had issued a temporary restraining order based on their initial filing, effective immediately. Edward Blackwood was prohibited from moving any artwork from the gallery or his private residence until after tomorrow's hearing. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text from her gallery source. Process server just delivered court papers. EB furious, TG in damage control mode. This changes things. Samantha began reorganizing her documents, prioritizing the most compelling evidence for tomorrow's hearing. The restraining order buys us time. If we win the injunction tomorrow, Edward will be legally prevented from selling or moving any of the remaining collection until the full case is resolved. Emma felt the weight of decision on her shoulders. The court battle represented their best chance for justice through official channels. Yet Noah's instinct about Marigold Cottage nagged at her. What if critical evidence remained there? Evidence that could strengthen their case or even reveal Maggie's fate. She pulled Jack and Rebecca aside while Noah showed Dr. Winters his chess set. I think Noah's right about the cottage. The restraining order protects the artwork for now, but there might be evidence at Marigold Cottage that could be destroyed once Edward realizes we know about it. Jack nodded, his military mind already calculating contingencies. I'll take you, tonight, you. One vehicle, minimal profile. We checked the cottage for evidence and returned before the hearing. Arrangements were made quickly. Emma and Noah would remain at Samantha's office with Rebecca and Dr. Winters until evening, reviewing evidence and preparing for the hearing. Jack would go with Michael to secure equipment and supplies for the cottage expedition. As the winter darkness deepened outside the office windows, Emma watched Noah work with James Reynolds, cataloging the known pieces of Frederick's collection from museum records. The boy's methodical approach impressed the museum director, who treated him as a colleague rather than a child. James Reynolds proved to be more than just a museum administrator. His expertise in art authentication and provenance made him a valuable addition to their team, and his genuine concern for preserving Frederick's collection aligned perfectly with their goals. The collection shouldn't be dismantled and sold piecemeal. Art of this caliber belongs where people can experience it, learn from it, be transformed by it. Noah nodded seriously. That's what Maggie thought too. That's why Frederick trusted her with it instead of Edward. Emma found herself increasingly drawn to the museum director's passionate yet practical approach. Unlike Edward, who saw the artwork as commodities, James understood their cultural significance while still acknowledging the financial realities of managing such a collection. Jack returned as darkness settled fully over the city, the snow falling more heavily now. He'd changed into appropriate gear for winter conditions and brought supplies for Emma and Noah. Warm clothes, boots, emergency equipment. Tonight's our window. Weather report shows the storm intensifying through tomorrow. If we're going to Marigold Cottage, we need to leave within the hour. Rebecca would remain with Samantha to finalize hearing preparations, while Dr. Winters returned to Pine Haven with a security escort arranged by Jack. Michael would drive Emma, Noah, and Jack to Cape Cod in his SUV, better equipped for the deteriorating road conditions than Jack's sedan. As they loaded into Michael's vehicle, the gravity of their situation struck Emma anew. 1 week ago, she and Noah had been living in their van, scraping by day to day, their greatest concern finding safe parking and enough food. Now they stood at the center of a legal battle against one of Boston's elite families, with the fate of a multi-million-dollar art collection hanging in the balance. The drive to Cape Cod took nearly 4 hours in the worsening weather. Noah slept for much of the journey, his head resting against Emma's shoulder, his breathing mercifully clear despite the stress and cold. Emma used the time to review the case documents again, searching for any details they might have overlooked. Michael drove with the calm competence of someone accustomed to difficult conditions, occasionally sharing quiet observations with Jack about security considerations. Their military background manifested in a shorthand communication that required few words but conveyed complex information. Marigold Cottage emerged from the snowfall like a ghost, a modest Cape Cod-style house overlooking a private beach, its weathered gray shingles nearly invisible against the night sky. No lights shone from within, no footprints disturbed the pristine snow on the winding path to the door. Jack conducted a perimeter check before allowing anyone to approach, his flashlight beam sweeping methodically across the property. The cottage appeared untouched, preserved in a time capsule of the early 1980s. Property taxes and minimal utilities paid automatically from a trust account, just as Jack had discovered in his research. The front door's lock proved surprisingly sophisticated for a beach cottage. Not the simple mechanism one might expect, but a high-security system that would have been cutting edge in the early 1980s. Jack examined it with professional respect. Someone wanted to ensure this place remained secure. While Jack worked on the lock, Michael established a security perimeter, positioning himself where he could observe both the approach road and the cottage itself. Noah stood close to Emma, fully awake now, his eyes wide with excitement despite the late hour. The lock finally yielded to Jack's expertise. The door swung open with a protesting creak, revealing an interior frozen in time. Furniture draped with protective covers, photographs on the walls. A grandfather clock stopped at 3:17. The air inside hung still and cold, undisturbed for decades. Emma flipped a light switch, surprised when the lamps actually illuminated. Jack had been right. Basic utilities remained connected all these years. The cottage's interior revealed a tasteful, comfortable retreat. Not ostentatious, but furnished with quality pieces that spoke of Frederick Blackwood's discerning eye. Noah moved through the space with reverent care, examining photographs and books as if they might whisper secrets from the past. The furnishings remained exactly as they'd been left. Cups in the kitchen cupboards, books on the shelves, even a sweater draped over a reading chair as if its owner had just stepped away for a moment. They searched methodically, starting with the most obvious hiding places, drawers, cabinets, closets, then moving to more creative possibilities. Jack focused on structural hiding spots, false bottoms in drawers, hollow spaces in walls, loose floorboards. Emma examined the personal items, looking for anything that might have belonged to Maggie rather than Frederick. Noah's persistence again proved valuable when he discovered a leather-bound book on the shelf, unmarked except for the initials FB embossed in gold. Though it resembled other volumes in the library, something about its placement caught his attention. When he tried to remove it from the shelf, the entire bookcase moved slightly. A hidden door. Noah's discovery energized them all. Jack helped him pull the bookcase forward, revealing a narrow passage behind. The hidden room beyond was small but purposeful, a secure space containing a desk, filing cabinet, and small safe. Frederick's private office, hidden within his retreat. Jack photographed everything before they began examining the contents, creating a record of the room exactly as they found it. The filing cabinet yielded financial records, gallery documents, and personal correspondence, all meticulously organized. The safe proved more challenging, its combination lock resisting Jack's initial attempts. Noah studied the room, his eyes drawn to a painting on the wall, a small watercolor of the cottage itself. 39/17/83. Noah pointed to the barely visible signature and date in the painting's corner. September 17, 1983. It's Maggie's painting. She dated it less than a month before Frederick died. Jack entered the numbers. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside, they found a leather portfolio containing documents, photographs, and a small recording device. An early model dictaphone with several microcassettes labeled by date. The most recent tape was dated September 14, 1984, 3 days before Maggie disappeared. Jack found a battery-operated player in the desk drawer. The tape still played, though the audio quality had degraded with age. Maggie Porter's voice emerged from decades past, determined and clear despite the static. This will serve as my final record if anything happens to me. Edward confronted me today at the gallery, more aggressive than before. He knows I've gathered evidence of his embezzlement and forgery. He demanded I drop the will challenge in exchange for a generous settlement. When I refused, he said I wouldn't enjoy the consequences. I've secured copies of all evidence in multiple locations. The original will and financial records are in Box 891. The certified will copy and Edward's forged documents are hidden in Unit 217 at Valley View Storage, registered under Mary Patterson. And here, at Marigold Cottage, I've kept the most personal items. Frederick's letters confirming his intentions, photographs of artwork Edward has already sold illegally, and this final testimony. If I disappear, it won't be by choice. It won't be suicide, as Edward will likely claim. I've arranged to meet Frederick's old friend Robert Sullivan tomorrow to give him copies of everything. He'll know what to do if I can't complete this myself. The tape continued, detailing specific instances of Edward's financial misconduct and threats. Jack copied everything to his phone while Emma and Noah continued searching the hidden office, uncovering more photographs and documents that corroborated Maggie's recorded testimony. The final discovery came from an unexpected source, a hidden compartment in the desk blotter containing a single sheet of paper with handwritten text. If you found this, you followed the breadcrumbs as I hoped someone would. My final insurance policy rests with attorney Robert Sullivan in Provincetown. The truth deserves to be known, no matter how long it takes. MP Jack checked his watch, calculating time against deteriorating weather conditions. We have what we need. This recording alone corroborates everything Dr. Winters testified to, plus provides direct evidence of Edward's threats. Samantha can use this at the hearing tomorrow. They carefully repacked the most crucial evidence, ensuring nothing appeared disturbed in case Edward sent someone to check the cottage later. Emma felt a profound connection to Maggie Porter, separated by decades yet united by the pursuit of justice. Though they'd never met, Emma understood the courage it took to stand against power and wealth when the easier path would have been silence. The return journey proved even more challenging, the storm intensifying as predicted. Michael navigated through increasingly hazardous conditions, visibility reduced to mere yards in some stretches. Jack maintained contact with Rebecca throughout, providing updates on their discoveries and estimated arrival time. Dawn broke as they approached Boston, the storm finally abating. They headed directly to the courthouse, where Samantha waited with Rebecca. The attorney reviewed their discoveries with growing confidence, incorporating the new evidence into her presentation. Dr. Winters arrived shortly after, accompanied by James Reynolds, both prepared to testify if needed. The courtroom itself surprised Emma with its understated dignity. No marble columns or ornate decorations, just the practical solemnity of a space dedicated to justice. Judge Eleanor Martinez entered precisely at 9 a.m., a compact woman whose stern expression and direct gaze suggested she had little patience for legal games. Edward Blackwood and Thomas Grant arrived moments before proceedings began. Edward appeared exactly as Emma had imagined, a thin, austere man in his 70s, expensively dressed, his bearing that of someone accustomed to deference. His gaze swept the room with cold calculation, lingering briefly on Emma and Noah before dismissively moving on. Judge Martinez called the court to order with brisk efficiency. Today's hearing will address the plaintiff's request for preliminary injunction in the matter of the estate of Frederick Blackwood. This is not the trial on merits, merely a determination whether to extend the temporary restraining order pending full resolution of the case. Samantha presented their case first, her arguments concise and compelling. She introduced the certified copy of Frederick's revised will, Dr. Winters' testimony regarding its execution, and Maggie's recorded statement from Marigold Cottage. Unlike the dramatic scenes in television courtrooms, this proceeding moved with methodical precision, each piece of evidence building upon the last to create a cohesive narrative of Edward's deception. Your Honor, Ms. Walker discovered these items through perfectly legal means, the purchase of an abandoned storage unit. Thomas Grant attempted to portray Emma as an opportunistic treasure hunter. The items she found have revealed a decades-long pattern of fraud, forgery, and potentially worse crimes related to Ms. Porter's disappearance. The preliminary injunction merely preserves the status quo until these serious allegations can be fully examined. Thomas Grant countered with arguments about the statute of limitations, questioned the authenticity of the evidence, and emphasized Edward's 40 years of faithful stewardship of the Blackwood legacy. His presentation carried the polished conviction of someone who had spent decades justifying the actions of wealthy clients. Judge Martinez listened impassively, occasionally asking clarifying questions of both attorneys. When both sides had presented their arguments, she spoke directly to Edward Blackwood. Mr. Blackwood, these allegations are extremely serious. While this hearing is not determining ultimate liability, I must consider the likelihood of the plaintiff's success on the merits when deciding whether to grant the injunction. Edward stood, straightening his already impeccable posture. Your Honor, I have dedicated my life to preserving my uncle's legacy. These baseless accusations from a homeless woman, he glanced dismissively at Emma, seek to defame my character and disrupt a major exhibition that celebrates Frederick Blackwood's vision. I categorically deny any wrongdoing. Judge Martinez's expression remained unreadable. After several moments of consideration, she delivered her ruling. I find sufficient cause for this preliminary injunction to be granted. The financial records of the Blackwood Gallery from 1980 to present shall be provided to plaintiff's counsel within 30 days. Additionally, I am extending the temporary restraining order preventing the sale or transfer of any artwork from Frederick Blackwood's original collection pending the outcome of this case. The judge's gavel fell with finality. Court adjourned. Samantha turned to Emma with restrained triumph. That went as well as we could have hoped. The injunction is crucial. It prevents Edward from quickly selling off or hiding assets while the case proceeds. As they gathered their materials to leave, Emma noticed Edward engaged in intense conversation with Thomas Grant, their expressions suggesting the seriousness of their situation. Edward's gaze found Emma's across the courtroom, his eyes narrowing with calculation rather than defeat. "What happens now?" Emma asked as they exited the courthouse. "Now the real work begins. Discovery, depositions, financial forensics." Samantha checked her watch. "I have a meeting with a forensic accountant who specializes in art fraud cases. We're going to need expert analysis of Maggie's ledger and Edward's gallery records." The winter sun emerged briefly from the clouds as they stepped outside, transforming the snow-covered landscape into a glittering panorama. Noah tilted his face upward, catching snowflakes on his eyelashes. It felt like a good omen after days of darkness and storms. Rebecca suggested lunch to celebrate their initial victory. They chose a casual cafe near the courthouse where Noah marveled at the fancy sandwich, and Emma allowed herself to relax slightly for the first time in days. Vincent looked worried, Rebecca observed, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. The injunction is a serious blow, especially with the exhibition so close. His reputation in the art world is already taking hits from the publicity. Good. Noah's firm declarations surprised both women. He was mean to Maggie and he tried to scare us. She deserved better than to be forgotten. Emma smoothed his hair affectionately. "You're right, baby. But remember what we talked about. We're seeking justice, not revenge. There's a difference. Justice repairs what's broken. Revenge just breaks something else in return." Noah recited the distinction Emma had tried to instill in him. Rebecca nodded appreciatively. Wise words. And speaking of justice, I received an interesting call this morning from an old contact at the police department. They're reviewing Maggie Porter's missing person case in light of our evidence. After all this time, could they actually determine what happened to her? Emma asked. Possibly. Cold cases have been solved with less. Rebecca hesitated. But we should prepare ourselves for difficult answers. The evidence strongly suggests that Edward or someone acting on his behalf may have been involved in her disappearance. As they were finishing lunch, Emma's phone rang, Samantha calling with unexpected news. Edward wants to meet, not in court, not with lawyers present. He's requesting a private conversation with you. Why would I agree to that? Emma asked, instinctively suspicious. You shouldn't and won't, at least not alone. But this suggests he's rattled, possibly looking for a way out that doesn't involve full legal disclosure. I told Grant any meeting would have to include me, but he insisted Edward wants to speak with you personally. Samantha paused. It's your decision, but if you're willing, this could be an opportunity to gauge just how desperate he is. After discussion with both Samantha and Rebecca, a compromise was arranged. Edward would meet with Emmy at Samantha's office with the attorney present, but not actively participating unless legal issues arose. The meeting was set for 4 p.m. that same day, leaving Emma little time to prepare mentally for confronting the man who had threatened her family and potentially caused Maggie Porter's disappearance. Remember, you hold the power in this situation, Samantha advised as they waited for Edward's arrival. He's the one facing potential financial ruin and criminal charges. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Edward Blackwood arrived precisely on time without Thomas Grant, a detail that immediately caught Samantha's attention. He acknowledged Emma with a curt nod. Thank you for agreeing to meet. Edward glanced at Samantha, clearly displeased by her presence. I had hoped for a more private conversation. That's not possible. Emma's voice remained steady, drawing strength from the evidence they'd uncovered and the justice they sought. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of my attorney. Very well, I'll be direct. This case, if it proceeds, will destroy everything I've built over 40 years. The gallery, my reputation, my legacy. Even if I ultimately prevail, the damage from publicity alone would be irreparable. His expression tightened. I'm prepared to offer a direct settlement, a generous one. He named a figure that made Samantha straighten in her seat. $1 million to be paid immediately in exchange for all evidence from the storage unit and a signed confidentiality agreement. And what about Maggie? Emma asked quietly. What happened to her? I had nothing to do with Maggie Porter's disappearance. Whatever you may believe, whatever your evidence suggests, I never wished her harm. Edward's voice carried the practiced conviction of a man who had repeated a story so often he might almost believe it himself. But you took what was rightfully hers. You erased her from your uncle's legacy. Emma felt righteous anger rising like a tide within her. I protected the collection. Edward countered, his rationalization revealing the depth of his self-deception. Maggie was young, inexperienced in the art world despite her education. She would have sold pieces to fund her idealistic notions. The collection would have been dispersed, lost. Instead, you've been selling it off piece by piece for decades, Emma pointed out. Maggie's ledger documents the sales meticulously. I sold only what was necessary to keep the gallery operational, to preserve the core collection, to honor Frederick's vision. Edward's defensive tone suggested he truly believed his own justifications. Frederick's vision was for Maggie to inherit. Emma's voice remained firm, grounded in the evidence they'd uncovered. You need to understand the context. Edward's demeanor shifted subtly, a glimpse of vulnerability breaking through his carefully maintained facade. The art world in the 1980s was not what it is today. A young woman like Maggie, no matter how intelligent, how devoted to Frederick, would have been eaten alive by the dealers, the collectors, the critics. I convinced myself I was protecting both her and the collection. He looked away briefly, and then she became a threat, not just to my inheritance, but to my freedom if the embezzlement was exposed. Samantha shifted forward, professional instincts triggered by the potential admission. Mr. Blackwood, I should advise you that anything you say could potentially— I know precisely what I'm saying, counselor. Edward interrupted, his gaze fixed on Emma. I did not harm Maggie Porter, but I did threaten her, pressure her to drop her legal challenge. When she refused, I had Grant hire someone to follow her, to find this evidence she claimed to have. The man was instructed to frighten her, nothing more. But something more happened. Emma's quiet statement hung in the air between them, a question and accusation combined. The last time I saw Maggie was September 15, 1984. She came to the gallery after hours, extremely upset. Said she knew I'd had her followed, that she'd caught the man breaking into her apartment. She threatened to go to the police, not just about the will, but about everything. The embezzlement, the forged signatures, the tax fraud. Edward's composed veneer cracked further. I lost my temper, said things I shouldn't have, threatened her more explicitly than I had before. She left, still angry, still determined. 3 days later, she didn't show up to work. Her apartment was found empty, some of her belongings gone. The police investigated but found no evidence of foul play. And you let them believe she'd committed suicide. Emma's voice carried no judgment, only the weight of history finally being acknowledged. It was the simplest explanation, the one that would end the questions fastest. Edward's expression had grown haunted, the burden of decades of deception evident in the lines of his face. Samantha interjected, her legal caution momentarily overcome by curiosity. But you never knew for certain? Never. Edward looked directly at Emma. That's the truth. I committed fraud. I stole Maggie's inheritance. I threatened and intimidated her. But I did not harm her physically. Whatever happened after she left the gallery that night, it wasn't at my hand or my instruction. Emma studied him, searching for deception, but finding only a complicated mixture of defensiveness, regret, and fear. Your $1 million offer, she said finally. It's not enough. $2 million then. Edward's response came quickly. But that's my absolute limit. I'm not negotiating the amount, Mr. Blackwood. I'm saying money alone isn't sufficient. Emma leaned forward, her resolve strengthened by every hardship she'd endured, every night spent in the van wondering if Noah would have a future. Maggie Porter deserves justice. Your uncle's wishes deserve to be honored, and the truth deserves to be known. What are you proposing? Edward's question revealed his recognition that the power balance had shifted irrevocably. A complete accounting of every piece from Frederick's collection that you've sold, a public acknowledgement that Maggie Porter was the rightful heir, cooperation with the police investigation into her disappearance. Emma paused, holding his gaze steadily, and the remaining collection to be donated to a museum in both Frederick and Maggie's names. That's everything. My entire legacy. Edward's protest lacked conviction, the desperate grasp of a drowning man. It was never your legacy to begin with, Emma reminded him gently. And in return, Samantha will advise the district attorney that you've cooperated fully. We won't push for criminal charges beyond what the law requires, given your age and cooperation. Emma glanced at Samantha, who nodded confirmation. And you can still receive credit for doing the right thing. Finally, after all these years. And the financial component? For you and your son? Edward's practical nature reasserted itself even in defeat. A trustee position with the museum collection, with reasonable compensation. And yes, a finder's fee for recovering the evidence, to be determined by standard legal protocols. Emma's voice softened. I don't want to destroy you, Mr. Blackwood. I just want justice for Maggie and security for my son. After another long silence, Edward nodded, the gesture one of defeat but also, perhaps, relief. I'll need time to consult with Grant to review the specifics. Of course, Samantha interjected smoothly, professionally once more. I can draft an outline of terms by tomorrow, but I should advise you, Mr. Blackwood, that our evidence is substantial. If you choose to fight rather than settle, the consequences would likely be far more severe than what Ms. Walker is proposing. I understand. You'll have my answer tomorrow. Edward turned to leave, then paused, looking back at Emma. You remind me of her, you know. Maggie, not in appearance but in spirit. The honesty carries the same weight. After he had gone, Samantha turned to Emma with undisguised admiration. That was masterfully handled. You offered him a way to save face while still achieving everything we want. Will he accept? Emma asked, the emotional toll of the confrontation finally registering in her exhausted body. I believe he will. Samantha gathered her notes thoughtfully. He's old, tired, and now facing the collapse of everything he's built. Your offer gives him a chance to reframe the narrative, not as a thief exposed, but as an aging man making amends. Plus, the alternative is financial ruin and potential criminal charges. Edward may be proud, but he's not stupid. In the conference room, Rebecca had kept Noah entertained with chess and stories of her investigative journalism career. The boy jumped up when Emma entered. Mom, did the bad man say where Maggie is? He told us what he knows. Emma answered carefully, and he's agreed to help the police look for her again. But it was a very long time ago, baby. We might never know exactly what happened to her. That's sad. Noah's expression showed genuine empathy for a woman he'd never met but whose story had captured his imagination. Yes, it is. But what's important is that now everyone will know who she really was and what was supposed to be hers. We're helping tell her story even if we can't finish it. The next morning brought Edward's formal acceptance of their proposed settlement terms. Samantha was jubilant, Rebecca already planning a feature article about Maggie Porter and the recovered art collection once the legal details were finalized. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of legal documents, meetings with museum representatives, and the gradual unfolding of a new life for Emma and Noah. The Legacy exhibition at the Blackwood Gallery was transformed, opening with a somber press conference where Edward publicly acknowledged Maggie Porter as Frederick Blackwood's chosen heir and the rightful owner of the collection. He announced the donation of all remaining pieces to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts to be housed in a new wing named the Porter Blackwood Collection. The police reopened the investigation into Maggie's disappearance, interviewing the now elderly private investigator Edward had hired to follow her. While no definitive evidence of her fate emerged, the case remained active. For Emma, the most meaningful moment came when she was officially offered the position of collection trustee, a role that would allow her to use her eye for value professionally, ensuring Maggie's inheritance was properly preserved and presented. James Reynolds had championed her appointment, recognizing both her natural talent for recognizing artistic merit and her commitment to the collection's integrity. 6 months later, Emma and Noah stood in their new apartment, surrounded by boxes yet to be unpacked. The space wasn't large by wealthy standards, a modest two-bedroom in a good neighborhood with excellent schools, but to them, it represented unimaginable luxury after months in the van. Noah had already arranged his books on the floor-to-ceiling shelves Emma had insisted on installing in his room, fulfilling the dream he had sketched so many times. "Are you happy, Mom?" Noah asked, looking up from the chess set Michael had given him, now positioned permanently on a small table by the window. He was setting up a game to play when Jack and Rebecca arrived for dinner, a weekly tradition they had established. "Yes, baby, very happy." And it was true. After years of struggle and uncertainty, they had security, stability, and purpose. The legal settlement had provided enough for them to live comfortably, while Emma's position at the museum offered fulfilling work that valued her natural talents. Do you think Maggie would be happy too, about what happened to her paintings and stuff? Noah had never lost his connection to the woman whose legacy had changed their lives. I think she would be. Her story is being told. Frederick's wishes are being honored, and the art they both loved will be preserved for everyone to enjoy. Emma pulled Noah close, grateful beyond words for his safety and the opportunities now opening before him. "That's a pretty good legacy, don't you think?" Noah's question carried the innocent wisdom that continually amazed her. "The best kind," she agreed, leaning into his embrace. "The kind that lasts."